wanted to share just for 10, 15, 30 minutes I just wanted to share a brief message just and tell you that God has not forgot about you. And sometimes what we do is we talk about memories, we talk about remembering stuff, and whenever it comes to the end of a particular year, then 2021, we think back over 2021. And usually I get an opportunity, and I haven't done over the last couple of years. We think back, I've had opportunities to go over to the States and to be preaching and being in some amazing places in the States, and preaching and connecting with some amazing people. And we haven't been able to do that because of the last couple of years because of COVID, and you kind of struggle in the end to think back what you did over the year because your bins go out more often than what you go out in these days. It's absolutely ridiculous because you can't go anywhere unless you've got your COVID passport or you do your lateral flow and this, that, and the other, and then even then sometimes you still don't get in anywhere. And we haven't been able to do life the way we have usually done life before. And hopefully this year, that as time goes on, we will begin to get back to some kind of normality. And we think back over our memories of this year and over a number of years, and we think back over previous Christmases and all of that stuff, and we try to remember. And I don't know if maybe at some point in life you've maybe thought, you know what, maybe even this year, has God forgotten about me? And I just want to tell you today that God has not forgot about you. God remembers you. God knows you. He knows your name. He knows more about you than what you know yourself. God has not forgot about you. In Genesis chapter 8, we're told that God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark, and he sent the wind over the earth and the waters receded. Next verse. So when God destroyed, this is about someone different, that's about God remembered Noah. Genesis chapter 19, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. Next one, please. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. And she named him Joseph. Next one says, God heard their groaning. Is talking about the children of Israel. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. Exodus 6 and 5 says, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant with them. Next one. Do we have another one? Yeah, I think we got another one. And she made a vow, saying, this is about Hannah, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will look on your servant's misery and remember me, this is her praying, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life. A few verses later, in 1 Samuel 1 and 19 and 20, and says that the Lord remembered her. The Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. God has not forgot about you. There's something that kind of, for me, connects all of those verses that we have just read, all of those stories, all of those situations and circumstances that have arisen in those individual lives, is that every single one of them has been faced with a difficult situation and a difficult circumstance. We talked about Noah, we read about Noah, that God remembered Noah. Noah, I'm sure you're aware, has been through the flood, and he's stuck on an ark with his family and with all of these animals. And Noah's probably in a place where he's like, God, have you forgot about us? Because it's been so many days since the rain stopped, but the water's still here. God, have you forgot about us? And we're told God remembered Noah. We read about Abraham and about Lot. God remembered Abraham. He remembered Lot. Lot, as you know, was in Sodom and Gomorrah, but God delivered Lot out of the judgment that was to come on to Sodom and Gomorrah. We talked about Rachel and how that Rachel was without a child. But it says God remembered her and enabled her to conceive a son, and that son was Joseph. Hannah was the same. Hannah was at one point in time crying so violently, weeping at the temple that Eli, the priest, came to her, and Eli thought that she was drunk. She was in that much of a state over what she was going through. And she's crying out to God in her anguish and in her despair for a son. And we're told that God remembered her. We talked about the children of Israel and how that they have been enslaved for 400 years. And God says, I heard their groaning and I remembered them. I remembered the covenant that I have made with them. And God delivers them out of slavery. And sometimes we can be in those situations where we're thinking, God's forgot about me. Maybe we had a promise that was given to us, a promise on our lives, a promise given by God that God's going to do this, that God's going to use you, that God's going to move in your life, that God's got a plan and a purpose for you. And at some point, it all gets messed up. This is what happened with Joseph, Rachel's son. Joseph is given a dream. We all know the story. It's a plan of God. It's a purpose of God. It's a dream from God that his family are going to be bound down to him. That Joseph, you're going to be in a place of prominence where your family are going to be bound down to you. These are dreams that are given direct from heaven straight to Joseph. And the very next thing that we read of that happens with Joseph is that his brothers sell him into slavery and he ends up in Egypt, a slave in Egypt. And it seems like God has forgotten him. He moves from being a slave to being put into prison because of a false accusation. And I can imagine Joseph sitting in that prison thinking, God has forgotten about me. The children of Israel are enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. And I can imagine them, God, where are you? Have you forgot about me? And maybe you're here and you're thinking back over 2021 and thinking back maybe over years in your life and you're thinking, God has forgotten about me. And I want to tell you today that God has not forgot about you. We talked about Christmas and about some of the best Christmases that we have that we can reflect on, or whenever we got Star Wars stuff and whenever we got an Atari. And sometimes what we do is we connect our life and the quality of our life to the things that we have. And life, as we move on, hopefully we discover that life is about so much more than what we get. This is Christmas time. I don't know what Christmas it is, if it's last Christmas, if it's this Christmas, I don't know what year. But this kid is about to get the best present that he could ever ask for. Can we play that, Matt?
What do you think, Brian? We're going to adopt you, Carter.
We're going to adopt you, Carter. It wasn't about a PlayStation. It wasn't about an Atari. It wasn't about Star Wars. It wasn't about a games console. It was about family. We're going to adopt you, son. We're going to bring you into our family and you're going to be in the next picture. And that for me is what life becomes all about. Life is not about what we have, but about who we belong to, about who we're connected with, about who we do life with. And what I've learned is that when it comes to God, is that God desires us. He desires nothing more than just to have a relationship with us. That Paul, whenever he's writing in the New Testament and he's writing letters, he talks a lot about adoption. And as Christians, we are adopted into the family of God. So we become sons and daughters of the Most High God. And what Paul talks about in that whole adoption thing and what we've just watched here and what happens with adoption is that you become a son. What this dad was saying, what this man was saying to this kid, Carter, I want to adopt you, so I want you to be my son. He may not have been a birth son, but the thing I love about adoption is that these parents chose this boy. This family, this couple, they chose this kid. You see, whenever you have a child by natural means, then you don't get a choice in what comes out. What comes out, job done, that's it. And you get what comes out. These parents chose this boy. And they're saying, I want to adopt you. And that's what God does with us. He chooses us. And he says, I want to adopt you. I want to bring you into my family. I want to make you a son, and I want to make you a daughter. And what Paul talks about in us being adopted is that we then have the exact same rights. And everything is the exact same. It's a level playing field with the sons and daughters who are conceived by natural consent and in a natural way. And what Paul talks about in the New Testament is that as sons and daughters, we become joint heirs with Jesus Christ. You see, as God the Father, who oversees the kingdom of heaven, Jesus Christ as the Son is the heir to a kingdom. And what Paul is telling us is that we actually become joint heirs with Jesus Christ. So that what will be handed over to Jesus Christ, this kingdom that will be inherited, that we know will come in the end times, that will be established on this earth, we talked about it in this place, that we become heirs of that kingdom. So as we are adopted into the family of God, it's about relationship, it's about connection, it's about belonging, it's about us recognizing that we belong to God. But it's about what we get as a result of that. It's about what we become an heir to. And we've shared and I've seen messages, about people who have lost their loved ones in years gone by. And we talk about eternity and what's ahead of us. And I was just thinking that, I know there's a verse in Scripture that says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, neither has it entered into the heart or into the mind, that which God has prepared for us, which God has laid up for us, which God has planned for us, which God has established for us, which God has organized for us, which God has set in place for us. We just don't have a clue, church, what God has for us. And it's not just something that we enter into. It's something that He gives to us, and it's something that we will possess. We are heirs of a kingdom. In other words, we will become rulers of His kingdom. He will place us in places of authority, in places where we will rule and we will reign with Jesus Christ as joint heirs of that kingdom. That's what we're looking towards. So it doesn't become, Christmas and life doesn't become just about what we own and what we possess. It's about who we belong to. And I belong to Jesus. I'm a son of the Most High God. Christian in this place, you're a son of God. It's about identity. It's about belonging. You're a son of God. You're a daughter of God. And one day, we will take possession of that. And so I want you to know, as I come to a close, that God has not forgot about you. Worship team, you can come. God has not forgot about you. In every one of those stories that we have just read, those people were in a place where they could say, God has forgot about me, where they were thinking in their minds and in their hearts, God has forgot about me. I want to tell you today that God has not forgot about you. And in every single moment, in every single point, at a point or another in their lives, God moved. We're told God remembered Noah, God remembered Rachel, He remembered the covenant He made with Abraham, with Isaac, with Jacob. He remembered Abraham, He remembered Lot, He remembered Rachel, He remembered Hannah. And what that means is not that He ever did forget about them. And whenever it says that God remembered Noah, and Andrew Willis shares this so eloquently and so well, it wasn't that God forgot about Noah. There comes a point where God moves. It wasn't that whenever they were going through those situations and circumstances where God had just completely forgot about them. And there came a point where God's like, I forgot about Noah. I forgot about Rachel, forgot about the prayer. Oh, here, I forgot about Hannah and what she was desiring and her prayer at the temple. There was never a point where God forgot about them. But there will come a point whenever God will move. The thing about God moving, but is that God doesn't ever really give us an idea that He's about to move. God just moves. Whenever we least expect it, God just moves. That's how He operates. And one day we can be in such despair, in such a mess, and going through a situation where we genuinely believe God has forgot about me. Sometimes even to a point where it's not just God has forgot about me, but God has just gone, turned His back on me. He's left, he's moved on to something else. And I want you to know that God has not forgot about you, and that God will move in your life. Where it says God remembered Hannah, where it says God remembered Rachel, where it says God remembered Abraham, where it says God remembered Noah. You put your name in there. You put your name in there. God will remember you. I pray that as we move into 2022, I pray that in 2022, you will come to the realization of that. You will get the revelation of that, where there will be a move in your life, where there will be a breaking, where something needs broke, that there will be breaking off, where something needs broken off you, that there will be a deliverance, where you need delivered from something. But there will just be a move of God. And what we're told in the Bible a number of times is that God moves suddenly. Suddenly, without any warning, that God moves. The disciples, the apostles were gathered in the upper room. Suddenly there was a wind. Suddenly there was a fire. Suddenly there was a move of the Holy Spirit. Zechariah, the priest, is going into the temple to make the sacrifices. Something that had done many, many times before, something that had become so mundane with a lot of the priests and what this whole sacrificial system had become. And he's going in, he's thinking, I'll go in and do my thing, and then I'll go again. And in the temple, he's met with an angel, he's met with a message. Your wife's pregnant. And she gives birth to John the Baptist. He's prophesied about in the Old Testament. He will prepare the way for the Lord. Suddenly, an angel shows up with Mary. Mary, you're pregnant. You're pregnant, Mary. This is how God moves. Suddenly. So I just want you to know that God has not forgot about you. God remembers you, that God knows, that God will move. Suddenly, God will move. I pray it's 2022. I pray there will be such a move of God in this place in 2022. I pray that there will be a suddenly move of God in this place like never before. And I pray that there will be a move of God in each and every single one of you. I pray that you will know, you will have that realization that God's not forgot about you. Whatever it is, God knows. God knows. You're His son. You're His daughter. He cares about you. He loves you. He's watching over you. And He's not forgot about you. He remembers you. And I just trust and pray that we will remember Him. That we will not forget about Him. That we will not forget about what He has done in us. So many times in the Old Testament, He's telling the children of Israel to do stuff to remember what He has done for them. The feasts are established to remember how God delivered them. Set up stones to remember how I brought you this way, how I delivered you, how I set you free. Remember what I have done for you. God has not brought you this far just to forget about you. God has not brought you this far just to turn and walk away from you. God always finishes what He starts. And God's not finished with you yet. God's still got so much more to do in your life. God will remember you. You remember Him. Remember what He has done for you.